Warriors, rise! Hey, what's up, Warriors? It's Coach JV and Waters Above Crypto. We're back with you guys, more consistent to bring you information. And the title today is What You Resist Will Persist. And today we're just going to chalk it up and talk about life, about a little bit about the markets, maybe a little bit about the Shemitah and things going on within our communities. And what we want to talk about and really bring to you guys is light, love, and positivity. I think that's the biggest thing that I've really enjoyed getting to know Waters Above Crypto, getting to become friends with him. We don't just do YouTube videos together. We communicate outside of this as well. We become friends. And one of the biggest things that we talk a lot about is bringing light, love, and positivity to our communities. And so giving information to help you make informed decisions, number one. Number two is to allow you to understand that money does not solve problems. It only solves money problems. So if you came here to learn what XRP is going to do, this is not the thing. If you came here to learn if Bitcoin's going to 100,000, this is not the channel for you, or this specific show, or even any of our shows, specifically our channel here. This is about light, love, and positivity. So today we're going to talk about what you resist will persist, a little bit about the Shemitah, what's going on in the economy. Those are things that we're going to talk about. But as we always do, Waters Above, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing better every day. I appreciate you having me on, brother.
Yes, always, always. And a reminder, Warriors, we have our our Great Awakening Boot Camp that we are hosting together. And Warriors, man,
it's next week.
Yeah, it's next week, next Monday. You can still join, so there's still seats available. So just to walk you guys through it, it is an online boot camp, and so if you miss it, if you can't join the actual live boot camp, it's an hour long. So Waters Above and I will be presenting. If you miss it, the recording will be sent to you, and if you miss all four, all recordings will be packaged up and sent to you at the end. So basically, it's not crypto, it's not financial, it's the great I am. It's helping people awaken to who they truly are. It's probably one of the most powerful works that I've done, and not only that I've done, but partnering with one of the most powerful people that I've worked with in regards to really understanding who you are. I think that's the most important thing. But I wanted to talk to you today about all the resistance happening, not only within the market, what's happening in our society, what's happening within the world. We got Ukraine, we got Russia. And one of the things that you and I both talk about is what you resist will persist, right? I remember one time we were talking and you had said to me, it was back when I was really deep in this, and I did a diving into the, not conspiracies. I do a lot of stuff where I dive into a lot of deep stuff, right? And you had said one time, either on your channel or you said it to me personally, I thought I was being shadow banned. It was so interesting, and I kept saying it. I'm like, oh, someone's reporting my account. Someone's reporting my account. And I think I might have been on one of your lives, or you said it to me personally. You said, well, if you keep saying that, you're bringing the energy to it. And I was like, whoa, interesting. So I just stopped saying it. I'm like, nobody's reporting my account. And I basically said to myself, you're just putting out shitty content. Nobody's listening to it. And so I put out some better content. And what happened was because I kept saying that, the energetic frequency I was putting out as I was putting out that content had a low vibration to it, and it wasn't being picked up by people. And so as soon as I dropped it and said, no, nobody's shadow banning me, nobody's stopping me, nobody's preventing me from getting this information out there, I'm just putting out shitty content. So I raised my vibration, and all of a sudden, I think it was like 3 days after that, I had a million view TikTok video, and now went back to going viral. So because of the wise counsel, I never say that. I don't say anybody's reporting my account. It's just the fact that I'm operating on a lower vibration and my frequency isn't aligning. So now what I do on social media, because I'm not dictated by my social media, if I'm not feeling it, I don't post, right? And so that's something I wanted to talk to you about, because as we build into this, what we do is everybody wants to grab onto, like, there's nefarious people out there stopping us from becoming rich, or there's this person is stopping us from doing this. Like, how do you see that as you grow into your leadership?
Well, you brought up a great point, and one of the things to remember, like, for everyone who's listening to this, is you determine the speed at which you move through this, like, matrix. Like, you get to determine the speed of which your opportunities become those freedoms for you, whether it be financial freedom, spiritual, conscious, whatever it is. So, like, the output that you give is the return. And if you do that genuinely and ruthlessly, you do that without being fake, without wearing a costume, you're going to reap the reward. So of course there's a risk in that, because it requires you to risk the words, your popularity, your persona, how people perceive you. But when you're true to yourself and true to your message, you never actually have to worry about anything whilst you're in the process. So I always tell people, like, you always want to focus on your process, not the outcome. And if you're worried about like being popular, worried about having people notice you, then you might want to ask yourself, like, are you giving yourself the most attention, or are you giving the external world a lot of your attention? And this comes back to one of the things we were talking about before this got going, of the cyclical nature of our reality, whether it be market crashes or wars or whatever's happening on the world stage. It's always an attention grab. So it's an attention grab. So where I can answer your question is, over the past couple of years, I've been very cautious of where I spend my attention. I'm very, very cautious in how I utilize where I'm focused. And every time that I start to get off track and I'm not focused, I always bring it back to self, because I know through myself, I'll be able to shine and resonate a frequency that could help everyone around me.
Yeah.
So it's about energy for me, and paying attention to what serves me and not what serves others. And I know that sounds weird because people will perceive that as being selfish, but it's not actually, because in my role, what I do in the world, it's all about one person, me, helping many thousands of people. So, it's really the other way around when people are considering they have to go out and wake people up or help people. Like, you just speak your truth, do what you got to do, and people will listen, people will resonate, but you don't have to wake up and you don't have to try waking people up. Like, that's not your goal. You're not here to do that. Like, you're here to go through your journey, and through your outcome, through your accomplishments, people will be paying attention to that. And that's the universal language.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You said something powerful. So the word, I was thinking about this, right? Word magic. The word pay attention, right?
100%.
Your attention. Yeah. So pay. So whatever you're giving attention to, there's a payment for that. There's a true payment for that, one way or the other, right? If your attention is going, for example, I'm big on studying my way of the mastery. And when my attention is fully focused on the way of the mastery, Christ consciousness, being love, right? Staying away from consuming social media and projecting on social media, the payment is abundance comes to me. But when I fall off, there's a payment for your attention, right? So all these words like impossible, right? I am possible. And so that's one thing I want to talk about too, is like really your perception around words, right? So I've really been conscious of what I speak, right? For example, if I start to feel, we have, our conference this week, and it can appear to be overwhelming, but I say I'm overblessed. I'm not overwhelmed, I'm overblessed. And so that's just, it's a frequency, right, that I'm experiencing within this physical reality. I actually, if you don't mind, I just want to go deep into this, because I've been doing a lot of deep diving around the way of the mastery and consciousness and presence, and really the physical construct that we are experiencing, right? So like a lot of people identify, and we're going to talk about this, so we won't go too deep into it because we're doing it on our boot camp, but like the identity, right? Identifying as Coach JV or CJV. A lot of people have asked me, because I've been many different people. I was a bodybuilder, became an opiate addict, committed suicide. That was a whole different personality. Became a banker, right? I identified as a banker. And then when I realized, hopefully this will resonate with people, is I became identified as a banker, as a executive. That was my identity. So I went from bodybuilder to banker. When I left and went through my awakening, it was when I found my greatest calling, or my greatest happiness and joy, when I stopped identifying as anything. I am not CJV, I'm not Coach JV, I'm not John, I am me. And when I started to become me, the great I am, everything started to flow to me. So it's like this physical construct that's been created, everybody's like, not everybody, I shouldn't speak for other people. People are experiencing depression, anxiety, due to this identity that's been created for them that pulls them outside of who they're supposed to be. Am I see, that's what I feel like. So like people are like, oh, everything's working out for you. I think it was supposed to be this way. I'm just finding out who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's actually a big reason I don't share what I look like with the world, because I don't want that identity to be part of what I'm teaching, part of my word, because I'll admit, and I've said this many times in my live streams, like when I talk with people and they could see me and see my eyes, I can really get to them at a very, it's a very effective thing, because when I listen to people, I actually listen. I actually care. So when we had that live stream where you were telling, the one that you were talking about earlier, where you were using these word spells, you were casting these spells, because I'm paying so close attention to the words you're saying. I'm not like, I'm just trying to protect you from continuously making that glitch. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's the same thing. Like when you're with somebody in person, you need to see their facial expression, their eyes, you know, the tonality of their voice and all that stuff. And we can't actually transmit that through the computer screen effectively. Like there's gonna be some sort of interruption of the realness, of the real genuine nature of all of this. So what I'm trying to forecast with my work is just my truths, and I deliver those truths through the voice. I don't want my image or my identity to play any role in that and sort of, you know, create this murkiness of the power within the words. So I think it's important in that regard. Some people, they thrive on identity, and that's where you have influencers, where people who are completely skillless, they have no actual talent or wisdom whatsoever, but just because a girl has a huge ass or like lip fillers or whatever, that people care. You know, like if you go right now onto Instagram and you look up like Kendall Jenner versus Kendrick Lamar, you're gonna see a totally different amount of people following. You know,
Yes.
you know, you see the, and this isn't to prove a point of numbers. It's just to merely say that there's a lot more attention on the global scale going towards someone who's talentless and skillless and has absolutely nothing to offer this world. They're merely just a body to look at, comparatively to somebody who's a poet and a thinker and a very sophisticated human being with lots of intellect and emotion to help you and influence you on an artistic level and a spiritual level. But you see where the attention goes? It goes towards Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Pay attention, right?
The way that humanity pays its attention is in liabilities and not in investments.
Oh, that's powerful. Let's dive into that, because that's, think about, we were talking about the Shemitah before we got on here. The Shemitah, we're in the 7-year cycle. We can dive into that a little bit, and then I'll share your Patreon is here. You're going to definitely want to get into his Patreon. I'll send this in just a moment here as we talk through this. But you're the one that brought the Shemitah to me. I did a TikTok post on it this morning because it's like, wow, because I love to dive into stuff. And since 1972, every 7 years, there's been some sort of financial collapse or downturn, whether it's 35% of the stock market, global crashes, and it's been the 7-year cycle since 1972 that I could find. And it's such an interesting, so that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit deeper on, that is like human behavior in cycles, right? So for example, I go through a cycle. I've been going through a cycle in my life that every single October I keep hitting the same. So I'm a very self-aware person. When every October I noticed that I would hit the same cyclic patterns for me as a human being. And what I thought in my experiences and working with plant medicines and what I have been understand is that these are my old self presenting itself to me to see if I'm ready to level up to the next level, right? So in October, I shattered it last year. I shattered it. I'm like, and I felt the transition to the next level, right? So do you think like the Shemitah, the things happening, you know, in the Roman days, and as Ray Dalio talks about, you know, it's just nothing new under the sun. It's happening over and over again. Is, as a human consciousness, are we revisiting the same patterns in a earth paradigm, like, and we experience that? Or so it's like, is it everybody having their own individual experience and there's a big human consciousness experience? Does that make, you see where I'm going with this?
100%. Yeah. So that's what astrology is all about. But like, people need to remember that the average astrology that they're learning about is called tropical astrology. And if you dive into sidereal astrology, you'll hear a term called Saturn's return. And Saturn's return, and Saturn plays a huge role in everything that has to deal with Shemitah, because Shemitah is the sabbatical year and the Sabbath is Saturn. So this is very important because Saturn's return is every 29 years and a little bit extra. It's not like precise, because again, this has to deal with astrology. There's nothing 100% precise about it. Right. But the cyclical nature of the human experience, allegedly, according to sidereal astrology, will have a shift on the 29th year, and then again on the following 29th year after that. So essentially, you're seeing that there is a shift every 29 years that could be like a paradigm shift, like an absolutely different reality as a whole. So that would mean 29 and then 58 and then etc. So yeah, we do. And I just brought up the Saturn's return because maybe people who are listening to this are already aware of a lot of other more common astrological nuances within the human experience, but I just wanted to give you and your listeners a completely like more esoteric one.
Yeah.
This way you could walk away with something that the average person wouldn't necessarily talk about. That's my style. You know, I want to give
Yeah.
somebody something new. So yeah, the Saturn's return is something that everyone should look into. 29th year of age. You might be surprised if you're 37 or something, you would have had a big shift in your reality around the age of 29. And you know, to get deeper into the astrological function of why the Shemitah is every 7 years and what's going on here, that's what I'm going to break down in my Shemitah decode that I'll be doing for the next Patreon post that I make. I think I'll be doing it probably tomorrow or the next day. But I'm breaking down why it's happening and why they're utilizing it and the reason why it affects the financial markets, because it's without a doubt playing a huge role in not only finances and economy, but it plays a role in the fall of empires. It plays a role in who remains in this power position for an extended period of time. So when you mention the 1970s, I mean, this literally goes back since the stock market was created. Like in 1901, 1902, there was a 46% decline in the US stock market. 1916, 17, 40% correction. 1930 to 1931, there was an 86% correction. I mean, it gets nasty, brother. Like we have World War II, World War One. I mean, Vietnam. This is all happening on around Shemitah years. And what happens is some people want to just label it as something that is only happening through Judaism, but it's not. It's the New World Order. They're a team of people that are all sharing the same bloodline, and they don't care about religion. They're practicing what's going on in the sky. They are astrologers and astronomers. So it brings you back to that quote that JP Morgan has.
Mm.
This isn't about being Jewish or Christian or Jesuit. This has to deal with the people who are the apex predators of our world, who are printing the money, the ones who are making the laws, the ones who are implementing and telling the soldiers where to go, who makes the military hierarchy. That's these individuals. And me and you never get to speak to them. We never get to see them. They're in the shadows. Because in order to have this much power and to be able to continue to have this much power, whilst you're in such a small percentage of the population, controlling 99.99% of the population, you cannot be in the world's view. So when we hear people talk about Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab being quote unquote elites, they aren't. They are sock puppets. They are talking heads that go in front of a camera. They're taking orders from something way bigger than them. And the thing that's providing those orders is an individual that understands what's going on in the constellations, people that actually understand vibrational frequency at the highest order. So is Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates a good guy? Would I want to hang out with them? I don't really care. They don't exist to me. I live every single day of my life as if these quote unquote individuals don't exist. They don't bother me, and if they don't bother me, I don't let them get in the way of my emotions. I see a lot of people who are in their journey on their path of enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, and their biggest roadblock, their biggest number one roadblock, and I know this because I speak with thousands of people all over the world for quite a long time now, it's blaming. Stop fucking blaming. Be your own individual, leader. Don't worry about who else is outside. This doesn't matter. And it's one of those things where I see so much potential in a lot of people, and that's not me to decide. That's up to them to decide. They seek counsel because they want the wisdom, but then their biggest thing that they do on a daily basis is blame.
Yeah, what they think about, they want you protesting, they want you fighting, they want division, they want mask versus unmasked, C versus unsee, or not C, or V versus unV, which you guys know what I'm talking about. They want people fighting on these planes. You see all these videos now of people fighting on the airlines. That's what they want. They want division from the oneness of who we are, right? And you think about this has been planned for a very long time. I did a deep video on Monday, and it's like helping people understand that this has all been methodically planned out. What in 1945 we got them on the petrodollar, right? We locked it in. We're bullies. We locked them into the petrodollar, so all dollars had to be traded in oil. And then in 1972 we detached from the gold standard. Boom, they turned on the printing machines. And I hope people understand this has been planned out for a very long time. It's not like cryptocurrency just came out of the blue, and there's plans for all of this stuff. They're slowly, methodically planning it. In regards to the collapses too, one thing that I talk about a lot, because I went into banking right after the housing crisis, and it was interesting. The question I asked myself, this is when I started already questioning things. I was like, who? Because we had people coming and sitting with us that had $1 million mortgages that had zero income, like no stated income. I'm like, how did you get this mortgage? It was a no stated income loan. So the question I asked myself is, who let that happen? They allowed it to happen. They
Yep.
literally allowed it to happen so that they could crush
Was
the
that
middle class.
during the subprime mortgage crisis?
Yeah. And the fact is, about the 20% of the population that has more wealth than the middle class has recovered, but the middle class still hasn't recovered. They're still limping along. You know, they got back on their feet. A lot of people had to file bankruptcy. Right when they get back on their feet and they're getting back in the groove, boom, here we go. The C word hits, and now we're back in the cycle again. Interest rates. That's what I'm trying to help people understand. I'm working on that word. Understand is that yes, there is a collapse coming. It's coming. Just get prepared mentally, spiritually, understand how to react, because it could be an even playing field for a lot of people when it comes to their 401k or their job. And many people may not have jobs. I mean, Jerome Powell says, he's sitting there on the top of the Fed. He says, I'm worried about the middle class. They're coming back to a new economy leveraged towards technology. He's literally saying, hey, middle class, get ready, your jobs are about to get replaced. And I was an executive at a bank, and we went through executive banking school. And this was in 2013. I was going through executive banking school. We were already talking about fintech and replacing tellers with talking ATMs, like reducing people and bringing in technology to reduce costs. So like to reduce costs to speed, like it's speed, it's all profit. That's what people need to understand. The taking the nefariousness out of it, it's just all about profit when it comes
100%.
to it. Right? All
yeah,
about
like
profit.
if you owned a supermarket and you had to employ 10 people to stand at the cash register, and then for just whatever venture capital decision, you decided to take 10% of your profits and invest that in a self-checkout section. And then now you have 2 self-checkout cash registers. And at the end of the year, when your accountant is done looking at all the financials and they say to you, well, you know, like this actually was preferred and it's been cutting our labor costs, et cetera. And look at what the profit margins now, then you would say, well, that extra money that I saved, I'm going to reinvest that in doubling the amount of self-checkouts. There's nothing nefarious about this at all. It just is what it is. It's called business.
And
so
it's
when
also,
people take
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when people take it personally, it's because they don't want to get up off their ass and make change.
Right. Yes. And that's powerful. And people get offended by that. But listen to what we're saying. Evolution. So human evolution is good. People are evolving. People created the technology, right? So like that's when there was a gentleman I saw. He had bought a private plane, excuse me. And so he was standing next to this gentleman. This gentleman says, he goes, dude, you know how many people you could have fed with that plane? He goes, I did. He goes, I fed the person who made the plane. I fed the person who made the seats. I feed the pilot who flies it. I fed the janitor who was able to clean the bathrooms. Well, he said everybody. There was a bunch of money put in the economy by it's a mindset shift, right? It's like we're trying to stop it. We're stopping the evolution of humans in creation, right? And instead of becoming so that's the whole thing of what we're talking about. What you resist will persist. I stopped resisting based on, like, for example, I'll go back to what I talked about when I was going, people are reporting my TikTok, blah, 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 blah. No, it was, I kept lowering my vibration because I was saying that. So I was going at my TikTok with this chip on my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? It was like, it was
100%.
just, and I went back and looked at the content. I'm like, no, that's just shitty content. That's why. Go ahead.
I was perceiving this recently because I've had a lot of people bring this to my attention. But if you take that supermarket example that I just gave you, I asked somebody, do you enjoy sitting at a cash register all day ringing people up? Like, they don't want to be asked that question. But when you do that, you're being real with yourself. Like when I was super, super young, like new to this matrix, I already knew that I didn't want to do those mundane tasks. I just can't. My body and my mind, they don't operate like a robot. So I had to come to terms with that, because if I A, didn't want to go to college, which I knew was an indoctrination institution, B, I didn't want to sit around and be on a cash register and make coffee for people all day or be a fry cook or whatever. I had to be creative. I can't blame the whole society and structure of the way the economy operates because the overwhelming majority are consumers. I'm not a consumer. I'm a more creative person. Now how do I leverage what I specialize in, what I'm passionate about, to actually become able to sustain my reality whilst being a creator? Well, that's kind of like, that's the big reason why we were brought together by
Yes.
whatever cosmic forces that be.
Yep.
That's the reason why me and you came together, because we have similar ideas and narratives, and the goal that we have is not about us. Like, we've got ourselves taken care of on the spiritual perspective. This matrix body, this physical suit that we're wearing, like, that's a byproduct of whatever, but it's
Yeah.
not the most important, and that's where I'm at least. I don't want to speak for you, but it's the vibe that I get from being a friend of yours.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's the reason why I'm working with you and why why I barely work with anyone.
Right. So the reason why I started to do what I do at this global level, whatever you want to call it, the creator part of it with TikTok, is it because I had freed myself first, and I want people to feel the freedom that I had. I was living on my mom's couch. I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, there's something better out there for me. And so here's the thing. Let me walk through that. And then I'll answer this question real quick. Does our experiences actually alter our DNA? Absolutely. I would highly recommend looking up Greg Brandon, and it talks about the love frequency going from brain coherence down into your heart coherence, where you access, I think it's GABA. So that's how I do my manifestations from my heart. So instead of, I was head, ego, and I moved it down into my heart and the feeling and vibration that you're creating. So as I think about Waters Above and I affecting people's lives in the Great Awakening Bootcamp, I can feel versus think, right? It's moving from thinking to feeling. But going into the thing where you talked about so when I was on my mom's couch, right? It was like my parents' couch. I was very grateful, and I remember I was laying there. I was laying on my back on the floor, and I had my feet up on the couch. I'm looking at the popcorn ceiling. I was raised in that house, since got it in 1973, and I remember looking at the ceiling, and I was like, the very tile that they have in their house is the same tile since 1973. I was like, as a little kid, my feet were on this floor. And I was like, now my son's feet, were living there, and my daughter, and their feet are on the floor. And I'm like, I need to change. Like, I need to change. And I realized it was weird. And I think my parents are my shamans in regards to not changing things, because I was like, if I keep doing the same thing and I keep thinking the same way, my kids' feet are going to be on this floor. And so I'm trying to walk through this, and I was like, I have to change something. And then it goes into the whole DNA thing. I have to change the way my brain works. And so I stopped, you said it, I stopped blaming everybody for my problems. I actually got pretty angry. And I remember me and my mom were on a walk, and we would go on a walk every single night. And I looked her in the eyes, and I said, in a year and a half, our lives will be completely different. And I said it from here. I said it from my heart. I looked her in the eyes, and we both teared up, and I'm like, I will never be in this position again. I will never be in this position again. And here we come up in May. My mom and my daughter and my son are going to traveling to Disneyland. We're going to be doing cool trips. Like I said it to her from here, from my heart, with no resistance. There's nobody stopping me. There's no, C word was going on, and there was, they shut my business down. I'm like, no, nobody's stopping me. I already have access to everything I need. I'm just not operating in that frequency. And then when I went through my lesson in Peru just recently, where I was sitting on the bench and I saw myself as a drug addict 16 years ago, sitting in a crack house with my daughter. And I was like, what the hell? There's somebody in a crack house right now as I'm sitting on a bench in what looked like Garden of Eden to me. So there was just that person who I was accessing a different frequency. This guy sitting in the garden was accessing the heart frequency. And so if everybody on here can get out of your head and into your heart, as Waters Above is saying, it's like, it's not about protesting or blaming somebody. It's about getting out of that head ego space and dropping your guard and saying, listen, what is possible for me? What is possible? And then you start to create the feeling in your heart and the vibration, and you'll start to see that miracles were already present. They were already there for you. Like, you were standing at Starbucks, and you're whatever you believe in. I believe in God, or whatever you believe in out there. I believe in there's something. I believe in something. And so I'm like sitting there, and God shows me miracles all the time. I'm like, there's miracles happening on a daily basis. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Like with the DNA and like the heart brain coherence and the frequency and all that, because I'm experiencing stuff that stuff I would dream about as a kid right now. Like, I'm literally playing with form. Like, I'm sitting here in the office, and Kev came in here. He's one of my business partners. He came in here yesterday and was kind of just like off a little bit. And I'm like, well, he goes, dude, this is wild. 3 years ago, we lost everything. And now we have team members from Canada, Germany. Everybody's flying in. We have 27 people coming down. It's because we realized that we were already free. We
Yeah,
changed
that's beautiful.
we held on to that frequency. Like, so if I
Mm.
had $20, I gave him 10. I remember his tires went out and my mom had just given me a gift card and it was just enough. His tires were 270 and my mom gave me a gift card for like 280. It was crazy. And I was like, dude, my mom just gave me a gift card. I sound like I'm freaking 12 years old, but I was like, my mom just gave me a gift card. Let's go get your tires fixed. She, some reason, gave me a gift card right at the same time that his tires went out. And I'm like, then I realized that there's something synchronicity wise happening that's listening to me know that I'm free, right? And so like that's what I want to share with people. Like, it doesn't, if XRP goes to 589, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. You might be able to go on some cool trips, but you didn't change your frequency. You just changed the dopamine that you're experiencing, right?
The experiences that you've had, you know, it reminds me of that basic cliche of ask and you shall receive. So it's like if you seek something and you ask it into this existence and you see the power behind it, where you're able to look into your mother's eyes and say, hey, this is what I will do. Now, for 1 second, let's pause and think about when we say something negative or something that is blaming others, whether it be somebody who's, you know, head of the country or whatever, somebody in your local reality, a friend or a mentor or whomever. When you speak negativity, you actually put a detour sign in front of your plans. You actually slow yourself down. And what happens is this is a compounding effect because it makes you very heavy. It's a slow frequency. You know, doubt and fear and negativity. It's a very heavy, it's a very physical and heavy state of existence. But when you become more loving and you get out of your mind and you actually allow your heart to speak, you'll see that you could bring forth any opportunity, any manifestation, whatever you want instantaneously because it was always there to begin with. And that's why, like, if you just pay attention to the way that the whole system in our world is designed, it's to take children and strip them of that superpower. It's to strip them of living. It's to strip them of living and to have them be obsessed with existence. And this existence is tied onto an identity. And then within this identity, you have all these constructs. And it brings them so far away from their capability that they've had since day one. And this is why when when I'm discussing my truths, I've been trying to use that, not say teaching anymore, because I feel like we're all here experiencing our own lessons through ourselves. Like, you are your ultimate teacher. You're your own guru. And once you start to see that it's always within you, it makes everything else a lot more clear. You know, the one thing when we externalize stuff is it'll make one aspect clear, but everything else stays murky. But when you find out that you were the one that's designing this, you're the generator, organizer, destroyer. When you see that you are as such, you'll become more like that child, the one that is living. And in that life, you're actually feeling the experiences rather than just experiencing. So it goes back to what you just said. If XRP went to $580, what's going to happen is your bank account will be high, but what will be going on in your reality is you'll just be experiencing experiences. You won't be feeling the experiences. There won't be an emotion tied onto the life of it. It'll just be, oh, I have a lot of money in my bank account now. Awesome. You know, but what will that really matter in 5 years, 10 years, if no one around you resonates with you or has any vibrational connection with you whatsoever? And it's obvious too, the more money you have when you're of a low spirit, you can see those are the most, you know, those people are the ones you want to stay the most away from typically, because the chaos and the lack of, like, you know, it gets bad. And I know this because I am a coach. I mentor a lot of people. I have mentored ex-Wall Street investment bankers who blow 30% of their money on cocaine, strippers, etc. So when they're coming to me because of this spiritual perspective, the consciousness side of it. You know what I mean? People that run into inheritances and they have like 2 million and they're sitting with this inheritance and they're like, I don't know what the fuck to do. You know what I mean? And it's these basic little principles, because when you start to actually enjoy your life and live your life through your heart and not through your mind, then the value of $1 is actually $1 million. The
Mm.
value of $1 million is no longer something that's so far away from you anymore. It's converted into a different translation.
Yes. Okay. So let's dive into that, because that's you just defined what changed in me, because it's from an experiential standpoint, right? Is because I had no value. I had an integrity system based on my knowledge, but I had no value system inside of myself. But let me give you an example. I'll give you a specific example. When I started selling the program or helping people, right, or informing people, I was like pricing myself to the bottom because I had no value system inside of myself. I didn't know how to value myself as a leader or as a coach. I was adding a lot of great information and people were telling me it was great. Then somebody one time, his name is Mike. We call him Johnny, Captain Johnny in our academy. He said to me one time, I don't know how it happened. He goes, "Dude, why are you so cheap?" And I was like, He goes, "You should be charging thousands of dollars for this." It was really, and it just hit me. He was like, and then another person said that to me. "You're providing so much value. Why are you so cheap?" And then I had to evaluate myself. Once I finally dug into that, I was like, I'm stopping for a second. I'm going to dive into, why do I keep thinking that I'm not valuable? And so I had to root that out of where that came from. It came from my deep rooted subconscious mind programming of my lack of self-worth as a child. Right. So I started to work on that inside of myself. I'm like, I can't be coaching other people if I don't work on that part of myself.
Yeah.
Once I started to realize how valuable I really am to the world, and that I have a different fingerprint, different DNA, that I'm very special, and I started to walk like that. I started to talk like that, and I started to express that. And the very thing that changed in me was the value outside started to match that. I'm like, oh, so I raised my prices, and it was like, okay, value system, right? And then I started to build this self-confidence, and I started saying, you know what? I'm not here to sell anybody anything. I'm just here to become the best high frequency freedom person I can be. And that's all I've done. And that's what I hope to encourage other people here, is that you just have to, you said something powerful about children, right? I have a 6-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter. She's going to be 18, a month. Oh shoot, a couple weeks. And, but my son, he's 6, he's pure subconscious, right? And it's like, he's my little shaman, dude. He's running around. He's one minute he's a freaking, a fighter. And the next minute we're playing in the dirt. And I'm really working to be present with him. And I'm really working hard not to indoctrinate him into the system. And this is why we're experiencing what we're experiencing in the world. Nothing's going to change until people wake up to their true selves, because we're going to follow the same pattern because what we're experiencing, the scarcity, is from the Great Depression, right? Our grandparents passed that down to our parents, and we have the same indoctrination from our parents. And if we don't break free from that, we're just going to keep experiencing the same cycle over and over again. Right? The same 1% are going to stay in control. We can't blame them because we're accepting this reality. And then there's a few of us who are like, F the system, I'm going to become the system, not going against the system, but I'm going to become my own system. And then everybody looks at you like you're crazy because you're going totally outside of the box that was created for these people. You shattered it, and they're like, wait a minute. And it looks like you're like a balloon, like you're going away from them. And they try to pull you back into that box. So there's a bunch of people trying to pull you, and you go through judgment first, then you go through respect. They're like, shit, Waters Above's not going to stop. JV's not going to stop. And then all of a sudden they look and they go, oh shit, maybe I'll start following and listening. Right. So that's the stage that I reached now, where people are coming to me that made fun of me, like literally made fun of me. Can you help me? Absolutely. I'd be more than happy. And one of the things I don't do anymore is I do not give unsolicited advice anymore. I do not reach out to people and say, here's what you should be doing, because I'm still trying to get my own shit together.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for me. And it's like, I have a very small circle, to include you. You're in my circle, a very small circle that I seek wise counsel with. And I think that's just important too, to really dive into the child thing, because as parents, what we're doing is we're indoctrinating our kids into who they're going to be as adults. When my son says, hey dad, like, I'll give you a specific example. He was on, and now this could be a little bit, I got this from Jordan Peterson. Let your kids be, I don't remember how he said it, like be dangerous to a point. Let them do dangerous things, but don't, I can't remember the saying, but it's like, don't stop your kids every time they're on a monkey bar. It's like, oh, be careful, be careful. Yeah. And so what I did is this is probably a little too far. We're sitting at our kitchen table, our kitchen thing. And then we have these bar stools, and he goes, I'm going to jump to the couch. And I'm like, okay, physics, you're not going to make it. In my head, I'm like, you're not going to make it. I'm like, shit. I go, so this is what I said to him. I go, I don't think you're going to make that. Here's why. Physics say that you're not going to be able to jump that far. He goes, so you don't believe in me? I said, I do believe in you. I do. If you want to try, you can, but I'm going to share with you what might happen. You could get hurt. And he goes, can I try it? I said, okay. Sure enough, he jumps, freaking the bar stool goes out and boom, right on the hardwood floor, right? And he's like, oh, but he understood. He was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. It wasn't me telling him not to do that. I said, I do believe in you. Here's what physics say or math says. That's a long distance, but you got to experience that. And now he's going to be able to make the own decision on his own. Does that make sense? So it's like, instead of being
bro,
like,
that kid reminds me of me. That was the way I was my whole life. Every time I wanted to do something and someone said that I couldn't do it, I was like, let's go.
Yep.
I got excited. I was like, let's fall on my face. Let's whatever. Cause like at the end of the day, like it's the experience of going through the moment. And like, that's the spirit that children have. That's so like divine. You know what I'm saying? Like they really don't give a shit. Yep. They really don't. They're interested in the why. They're really interested in asking like why, but they're not actually too worried about your answer.
Yeah.
You know, and that ruthlessness is what sets them apart from adults who have their head in a stupor. You know, they're always concerned. They're always worried. They're always thinking about tomorrow and stressed and the trauma of yesterday. And you see, as you grow up, what is the thing you're doing the most? You're revisiting your past and you're etching away at the traumas of your past. And that's just being real. You know, you're the one who's exposing it. I'm just revisiting it in simple terms, you know?
Yes.
Whilst we're dealing with those traumas of the past, you see how much fucking extra credit it takes. It takes so much extra energy. But if we take a pure soul like a child, they're not thinking about what happened. They have no traumas, or the traumas they have are very cosmic. You know, they're very spiritual and they can't even articulate with the English language what their traumas are yet, you know?
Yes.
So perhaps there is some deeper conversation that could come from this, but that would get off the rails. But the point that I'm making here is that experience that you shared, you know, that means that your kid is like, you're doing what you need to do, but then also at the same time, you're seeing how the kid still wants to just go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when the kid becomes a teenager, and this isn't your child, but just any child, when your kid becomes a teenager, now you're talking about like 13, 14, 15 years of like the average parent is just continually just shutting down everything that they want to explore. And then, of course, they see somebody smoking cigarettes or doing drugs or whatever the fuck, right? Because this is what the human spirit desires. It desires something new. It desires something that requires risk, because their idea of reward is just based in dopamine. And you, as a leader or a parent, have to do your best to teach that it's not about the dopamine on the other side.
Yes.
It's about the wisdom you could extrapolate from the experience. So that is what I would say to any parent out there, anyone who's dealing with a being, because this is my job too. When you're dealing with anyone in a specific, you know, subject matter, you're their parent in a sense. You're the one giving them the counsel as you would a child. And you have a clean slate for some people. Most people you don't. You're working through their traumas and their anxieties and their depression and whatever. But with that being said, you know, to be able to reduce it down to such simplistic terms, you want to have everyone touch the flame, but let them know that before they touch that flame, I want you to walk away with what you're going to get out of that experience when you're done getting burned.
Yep.
Once you're done getting burned, what did you take away from that?
Yes. And that's so, like, for example, my daughter's 18. She's going to be 18. She's 17 right now. And so I went from parent to consultant about 2 years ago, and it worked really, really well. I heard this from, I don't remember where I heard it, but it was like parent to consult. I was from telling her how to live life to consulting her on life, right? When she comes to me with her problems and we talk through it. I'm just like, so what are your thoughts? What do you think? So for example, I shared with her that I was a full-blown drug addict, and here's the things that I experienced. I told her, this is what I said to her. People would trip out. I was like, if you guys know my past, I was, full blown opiate addict. And it started with, I was a bodybuilder. We started doing ecstasy, and then we went into like cocaine. And it was like, I actually wrote a book about it called Royce to Riches. It tells the whole story. And I was like, I said, yeah, I did all those drugs. They were really fun at first. She was like, really? I'm like, they were really enjoyable. And then the first time the first time. I said, then the second time I could never reach the first high. The third time I couldn't reach the first high. And then it just became, and she goes, that sounds gross. And like, it was really gross. I mean, I said, you were a little girl. You went through this with me. Like I said, it was a really gross thing I had to go through to become who I truly am. I said, but you don't have to do that type of stuff. I said, but you know, it's not as cool as you think. And it looks cool. And she's like, I know. So I was just very open with her and said, here's my rules, Raven. I said, my rules are, she drives and she's very responsible and she's like having a roommate. I say, when you go out at night, I have a rule. Number one, if you feel unsafe, I don't care if you're high, I don't care if you're drunk, I don't care if you feel unsafe, you can call me with zero judgment. Number two, you never, ever, ever get in your car after you've been drinking. She hardly ever drinks. She hardly ever does anything. She comes home on time. There's no weirdness about it. It's like, you know, my dad's like, I don't like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, here's what I've experienced. Drinking, I've always done really stupid shit. I got acted like an idiot every single time I drank. When we went to Vegas for our meet and greet, I don't drink. I drink maybe once a year. I drank in Vegas at our meet and greet, and my team halfway through was like, "Get JV up to the hotel room." Like he's
really.
That's the powerful thing though about having a good team around you, man. That's one thing too. So let's go into that because my team.
When I drink, I become like Yoda. I become like even more. I become even more wise.
I become so loving, man. They were like, we're in the pool, and I'm hugging everybody, kissing kissing people's cheeks, like I'm like freaking going around. And my team, that's was one thing that's important. My team was like, dude, JV's got to go. Like he's got and I was like, thank you guys. Thank you. They knew, like I had good people around me, like JV. And we were in the pool and I just kept drinking, like just drank too much. I didn't know, I wasn't planning on getting drunk, but what was my point behind that? But anyways, yes, I have no idea why I brought that up. Maybe I'm trying to heal through that, but.
Oh no, you're talking about your kid and like the counsel that you were giving your kid about drinking.
Yeah, and it's just like I really never like made it so like mysterious and it's just like, listen, I know what I did in high school. I hope that you're safe. And like the other day she called me up and she was like, hey dad, she's like, I'm at her best friend's house and her best friend's mom is amazing. She's like, I'm safe. She took a picture of herself. She's there. The mom's there. I'm like, thank you for letting me know you're safe. She didn't get in her car. She didn't drive. I'm like, thank you. That's, it's like, it's about like, especially with my son right now, it's like, letting him know anything is possible. Like if you guys watch my stories, my son is like, he has no concept of lack. He's like, I'm a billionaire. I'm a multi-trillionaire. He's a multi-infinity-aire. I teach him that. Like at our house, we play money manifestation all day. And it's not about money, guys. It's about abundance. I constantly, subconsciously, very, very, very low is always manifestation is playing in the background at our house. Always. While we sleep, it plays on these speakers and it's like constant. And he says things like, I'm a multi-infinity-aire. Like, what the hell is that? Like he has no concept of lack. Right?
I do the same thing too. Like when people learn about what I do, and I'm very like, I don't tell them what I do. I'm very slow to that. But if they pick at me and keep picking at me, and then they're like, oh, so you must be like really wealthy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a trillionaire. And like they like stop and they're like, what do you mean? And then it just throws them off guard because they want so badly to know something that doesn't even fucking matter.
Yes.
That's what I'm learning. Yep. And like when they keep picking and they want this like value out of me. And I'm like, dude, I'm worth the whole solar system.
Yes.
Like the sun is cheaper than me. Like the entire sun, the stars, Saturn, NASA Corporation, fucking Elon Musk, like all of that is cheaper than me.
Yes. And really listen to what please listen to what he's saying right now. Because
people hate that too. People hate that.
And they hate. So I would say I'm the greatest of all time. Within my paradigm, I have different fingerprint, different DNA. Every person is the greatest of all time within their paradigm. Everybody, like I went from, doesn't even make sense. I was an opiate addict 16 years ago. I became a banker. I left. I started this freedom company, lost everything 3 times building it, and now I'm free again. It's like I just keep creating. And that's what I'm here to teach people is if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, anybody can do it. And I think that's the limit. There's, there'll be positive and negative comments in here, and people are like, oh, it's ego, it's this. It's like, it's not. It's you should.
Yeah, like that's what we want to do. We want to identify it. but
Mhm.
like greatness and genius and all of these qualities that very few people possess cannot
Mhm.
be contained. Like light cannot be contained, only
Okay.
physical can be contained. So when we
Yeah.
talk about ego, this is where it comes back to actually like ancient Egyptian teaching. You
Mhm.
have you have the Ka, the Ba, and the Aku is the echo, which is the ego, and the ego is the cosmic egg, and that's what gives birth is physical bullshit that we're dealing with. So it's like when you
Mhm.
learn the story of the Christ, you see that the biggest transcendent moment is giving up the body. All right.
Yes.
It's giving up the body. And when you study it esoterically, you'll start to see like who's the Virgin Mary. It is Libra, it's Virgo. She's the goddess of
Mhm.
heaven. So the goddess of heaven gives a virgin birth to the Christ, and it ends up being the voice or the carrier of the message of the creator.
Mm.
And he finally transcends the physical body and becomes light again, back to spirit. And this is where we have the heaven and the heavens. So anyways, the point being is
Yeah.
that we lack such a fundamental understanding how all of this comes back to us, to
Yep.
self.
Yep.
And once you could apply it to self and see the utility of it as such, you no longer give a shit about the word ego because
Mhm.
it's irrelevant to you. And
Yeah.
what's obvious in my reality is the people who are the biggest consumers, the ones who like to point blame and, not really do much creation in this world. And I say this with zero judgment. It's just the red pill. It is what it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
These are the first people to say, oh, look at this person. They have an ego. Look at this person. They're egomaniac. And then they'll show me the example. And the way that I perceive that person is that's somebody that's going to change the world.
Yes. Yep.
That's what changes the world. And when
Yep.
I say world, I'm talking about the physical world.
Mm.
I'm not talking about this person's not going to make people enlightened or help them on their spiritual path, but this is the person that's going to shake shit up for the physical world
Yep.
when you
Yep.
get these specific types of individuals. So with
Yep.
that being said, it's we all need to work on why we identify certain things certain ways, and maybe spend a little bit less time identifying like things outside of us, and spend a little bit more time looking in the mirror and
Mhm.
identifying what the fuck we're all about.
Yes. That's the okay, so that's what I was going to talk about next. It goes right into it is the way that I look at my life, and just for people's perspective. Like, I'm not trying to be a coach. I'm just projecting the stuff that I study, my truth, right? And what I look at, for example, I don't know if you guys can hear it. So like, I laugh a lot. I have a lot of fun. And guess what? All my team members out there are cracking up. It's a reflection of me. My team is having fun because I am fun. I am free. Our team members, most of them are starting their own companies. They're all becoming financially free. They don't have work schedules. They work on deadlines. And it's like, so why? Because I don't work on a schedule. I travel wherever I want, when I want. I became free. So my team, so when I look in the mirror, when I have friends like waters above, I'm looking now at my friends and my surrounding, and it's a mere reflection of what I'm feeling inside. It's literally, I hear people laugh because I laugh a lot and they're all cracking up out there. So it's like, I
Mhm.
see everything in my reality as a mirror. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I report what Biden does. I report, but what Biden does, and if Trump becomes president, it doesn't matter to me. I'm still going to be a billionaire because I'm here to free people. And fortunately or unfortunately, money creates resources and resources help people. And so that's the way I look at money. Money is just a money flow, right? And I realized that when I went to Dubai, that was an interesting dynamic. I met a billionaire, right? And I was sitting with this billionaire, and I was like, the experience I was having, everybody else was all enthralled with this person. I'm like sitting there watching him, and I'm like, you're just me. You're just me. You're just another me. That's all you are. You're not. And he didn't feel that way. He didn't feel like special. He was just like, I'm just me being me. I literally saw a guy being him, and he was being paid a lot of money to be him. And he's just living his life. He has yachts and he throws yacht parties, and he looks like he's having a good time. And I was like, and it hit me. I'm like, okay, this is not about the number. It's about really who do you want to be, right? And if you look out into your frequency field and you see a bunch of chaos, that's who you're inside internally wanting to be. That's what you're projecting. That's what you're free. And then my shaman, when I was in Peru, he was like, he said, you know what the golden rule is? We're all sitting there deep in this experience. And I said, well, yeah, I think I know. He goes, treat others as you want to be treated. So let's take it a little bit deeper. He said, when you see someone treating someone poorly, unconsciously, that's how they want to be treated. I was like, ooh, that's pretty deep. He's like, that's the golden rule. When you see somebody yelling at a waitress, That's unconsciously how they want to be treated by people. I was like, wow, that's pretty deep. He said, because they're projecting how they feel inside, and in turn, they're just creating a feedback loop. That's all they're doing. So when you see someone constantly yelling at a waitress or constantly yelling at people on the freeway, why do people always cut them off? Why is it always them that are getting cut off on the freeway? It's like
No,
frequency.
it's very important to locate such a thing. And it comes back to what I was saying before about when you're pointing fingers and seeing like, everything from a reality of naming and blaming and just externalizing all the things, you're probably lacking within, and it's probably a sign of your insecurities. And it's very important for us to locate those moments because we can act on them before they actually show up. Just like when we had our conversation about not saying that you're being shadow banned anymore, or like feeling that way. Once you stop with that vibrational frequency, you'll now open up more abundance instead of that lack-based vibrational frequency. So also you'll get more in tune with things before they even happen as well. Like you'll feel when it's not the time to go do something and when it is the time to go do something. You'll know exactly when you should be sleeping, when you should be waking up. You're no longer living on the cycles that everyone else is. So for me, like if I could consider a lifestyle of freedom and abundance, it would be just existing as me, like whatever it is that facilitates bliss, not what facilitates riches or what, because none of that even, like for me, what makes me happy is picking up my guitar and playing music. Like that's what makes me happy. Most other things in this reality, I've just consciously made an effort to be more neutral because the less I worship things, the less I want to crucify things. And I bring this up very, very, like for a very important reason, because when we are becoming our own creators, we're typically caught up in worship and the worship of other creators. And if you're going to worship somebody, the moment that that vibrational frequency flips, you're going to want to crucify them. And you need to ask yourself, would you want to be treated that way if you were as powerful as this person? The odds are it's probably no. So just remember that, because we're all on our path to becoming something great. So when we see other great people, we must not worship them, because eventually we're going to have to crucify them. And this is something that changed my life. And it's something we talked about a little bit earlier in this stream as well, when we brought up people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates. Until those individuals start paying for my water bill or like taking care of me, like I don't really have anything to worry about with them. Yeah. And if you are worried about them, then that's probably a sign of lack in your reality. And it's probably a time for you to look in the mirror and ask yourself where you're at with things.
Yeah. And it's a powerful tool. The mirror is your best coach, right? That you can't lie to yourself. That's one thing I tell people that I'm coaching. You cannot lie to yourself. I guess you could, but you're going to heal the.
Well, delusion is useful in some regards, like what you were talking about before with calling yourself a billionaire. Like there's a strategy. There's a strategy to our delusions, and that is okay. There's a strategy to your kid thinking that he could make the jump, right? What we were talking about earlier. There is something going on there. And when we fail, we go back to the drawing board and we revisit our trials and tribulations and we say, okay, well, what is the thing that I could work on to make this stick next time? And it's the person that's able to persevere through their failures. If it takes them 700 times to get to where they need to go, whatever it takes. And it's those people that are the most resilient. And in your process, you're going to have a lot of doubt surrounding you. Like, especially if people are trying to become, a YouTuber or whatever, they're following in your footsteps specifically. Right. They're going to have to remind themselves the failure that you had at the beginning, which we all have. Not all of us just start out and we're going from 0 to 60 at the speed of a Tesla. Like it takes some time. So if you want to get there faster, the number one thing you can do is stop judging, stop blaming, and be grateful for wherever you're at in the process.
That's beautiful. It's a great way to wrap it up. So think about it, warrior. Stop judging, stop blaming, look in the mirror, self-reflect, look at your surroundings, right? I always talk about the 3 things. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you consuming? And it all goes back to frequency, right? So if you're feeling out of sorts, it's like a radio station, right? So if you're a country station and you're going over the rap station, it's like you're trying to get back to who you truly are. Maybe you're in the rap station, you're trying to get back to country. The frequency, right? The static is coming from somewhere external, right? So if you're always depressed, you have anxiety. I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about if you became depressed, or all of a sudden you're sad, or you fell out of love with your spouse, right? It's not often the other person. It's something happening internally with you. So the things that you're seeing, the things that you're hearing, the things that you're ingesting, which is the frequency of your food, is so important. And the lesson that I took from this, go ahead.
No, I mean, the only thing that I could say as my final words is that what you brought up about the radio stations, that's beautiful. So
Thank you.
all I can say is the static that you're hearing are the thoughts in your head. And when you get attuned to your station, that's when you go back to your heart.
Yes, yes. And because who's like, think about this for a second. They like, where are the thoughts coming from, right? What are thoughts? They come and go, and they come and go, and they come and go. The thoughts are being influenced by the people you're around, the reality that you're experiencing, or the circumstances that you're placed in, which is a created I am. When you get into the great I am, the thoughts slow down and you move from here into the heart space. And when you get into the heart space, you can feel your way through. You can feel your way through. And then when somebody comes to you and smacks you, it's like, oh shit, why did this person, you don't go, damn, the person smacked me. You're like, what did I do to cause that? Right? So what did I do? Why did somebody run up and smack me? Well, I said something that there was a cause and effect to it. It's not like, oh my God, you did this. And I think, as you talk about the Chris Rock, not to dive into it, but it's like the way Chris Rock responded, whether it's set up or not, it was like, he just let it go. And it made him more powerful because he was like, there was some sort of cause and effect, and he just let it go and he moved on. And it actually, the light made him more powerful because maybe he's at a stage in his life where he's like, there was a cause and effect to that. I don't know what happened. I said something that pissed him off. You know what I'm saying? It's like this energetic frequency field. And so it's not about blaming other people or putting it outside of yourself, and just looking at it from a mirror perspective, looking at yourself. Look at your reality. Okay, what's happening? People are angry all the time within my reality. Well, that means something inside of you, there's a frequency you're holding that's attracting that. So make the complex simple, warriors. Make the complex simple. Just start with what you're seeing. Like, you're listening to this right now. Maybe this is changing your frequency up or down. There's different comments. If it's making your frequency go down, then turn it off. Like, if this is making your frequency go down, then go watch something else that makes your frequency go up. If it's raising your frequency, then look for more of that. The cool thing about the algorithms is, as you start to watch stuff like this, it should start to pick up maybe Greg Branson or Russell Brand or some of these people who are more awakened and will help you with that. So I know we've last an hour with you guys. I want to put the Patreon in here as well. So Waters Above has a Patreon. He's going to be going deep into the Shemitah. Is that correct? You're going to be diving into
Yeah. I have a full-blown Shemitah decode. So for those of you that aren't aware, because we didn't really talk about it today, I do gematria and numerology and astrology connections to the markets. So I will be doing a full-blown Shemitah breakdown, which goes over the past and how to play out the rest of the year. So Shemitah ends in September, so I'll be giving a deep dive of how I'm analyzing the rest of this calendar year to go.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I always love you, brother. I appreciate you so much. Love all of you guys watching this. Thank you for the high frequency, even the negative comments. Thank you for that as well. All feedback is welcome because it's just a reflection of us and a reflection of you. We love you guys so much. We appreciate you. And as we always say, warriors, let's get your shit together. Let's go.